Okay, hello and welcome to my submission to the ESA Marathon in November of 2018. I will be running The Witcher 3 any percent Blood and Wine. Blood and Wine is one of the two DLCs of this game, and I run it separately from the main storyline because the game gives us an option to run only, or to play only, the DLC, so that's what I will do. The ETA for this any percent run is 50 minutes, plus minus 2. It's my PB currently is at 49. More time can be saved from that, definitely, but things can also go wrong and it can go up to 52 minutes. I wouldn't say it can really go worse than 52 minutes. So that's the approximate time frame. Before I get right into the run, though, there's two disclaimers I want to make. First of all, The Witcher 3, being a story-based RPG game, has a lot of dialogue. And unfortunately, that dialogue cannot be skipped in large chunks. It has to be skipped line by line. And of course, there's a lot of lines. So if I did this normally, then I would have to button mash through every single dialogue line in order to complete the run. And doing that, I would be spamming spacebar, right-click, and the desired number key for the dialogue choice that is coming up in order to get through. That's very tedious and straining, and it's just not enjoyable. And in my opinion, it was always going to be better to just have some kind of mechanical solution that put every runner equally in terms of dialogue, so that the time saves and changes would come from the gameplay and not the dialogue. So that basically button mashing wouldn't be a time save. So we have come up with an auto hotkey, a macro, that skips through the dialogue very quickly and consistently, which in my opinion is the best solution. Whether or not we're going to actually put that as a steadfast rule is not entirely clear yet, but we think we will. For now, though, I preferred to stay away from the button mashing, especially for a submission video, and I'll just go with the dialogue macro. Second disclaimer, again, not again, I've just repeated this from earlier. There is, of course, a lot of violence and gore in this run. I don't believe that should be a problem. There's also one very short instance of nudity, but I don't think that should be a problem either. In fact, with the dialogue skipping, it's so short, it's barely even visible. This is The Witcher 3, and that's very central to it. So, I'm going to try to get right into this. I will play on the easiest difficulty. This is any percent. There, technically, I could run on Death March, but that would be a separate category. And the fastest way and the most vanilla way, I'd say, to go through it is just to take the easiest difficulty. And that makes most of the combat a lot faster. Easier as well. I'll talk a bit more about that, I guess, as I get into the run, what the difficulty really matters. And at one point I will switch difficulties for a little bit of a skip. I'll get to that later. Now, since I start in one of the expansions, my character will have a higher level than when he begins. When he begins, he has level 0, obviously. But when we start in this expansion, he is at level 44, I believe. Or somewhere between 30 and 44. Either way, he gets 44 character points that I can spend on abilities. And that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to spend those 44 points on a build for this RPG character, which is going to make him attack really strong. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to brew a mutagen. I'm just going to explain this now because it happens very quickly. Although I can already start because the loading screen takes a while at the beginning. Anyway, mutagens are like damage boosters, and I will brew one of those mutagens to start out. So as I press on the beginning key, the timer starts. The loading screen is about 18 seconds long, if I remember correctly. It, of course, depends on the computer. But all of this, by the way, is RTA. There's no auto splitter for this game. We're working on one is being worked on more accurately, but it's not finished yet. So the very first thing I do actually is turn off tutorials because they turn themselves on automatically. So see, now I craft this great red mutagen, which will give me more damage. And then I started assigning ability points. Just a lot of spamming. There's a certain build to this. Simple to memorize though. And then I basically just spam E until all points are properly contributed among the abilities. Then I will equip these red mutagens. As you can see, they give me plus 40% attack damage each, which is a huge boost. And equip those two. The quest starts by me picking up this letter, and then I get stuck between my roach and the between my horse and the wall. That's fine. I'll just take the horse to the signpost. Signposts act as fast travel points that can teleport you to other signposts that you've uncovered, and I will be using that a lot in this run. Here starts the first cutscene, and the first time I will use the macro. As you can see, dialogue goes very quickly. That beginning section was in the regular Witcher 3 map. I am now being teleported to so-called Toussaint, which is the exclusive DLC map, so to say. It's the map to which this DLC belongs. And the first thing that happens is a little bit of a boss fight. Difficulty of this boss fight is dodging his attacks so that I don't get knocked back. Just not like that. It's a bit difficult, especially when I'm in one of my attack movements, to cut out of that and dodge. But it is possible, and this boss fight can go very quickly. As you can see, I got my last big red mutagen, which gives me a total of 160 extra percentages of attack damage. And since I am also playing on the easiest difficulty, that means that most fights will go very quickly. It's just about how quick I can really do them. Those are the time saves. Movement in The Witcher 3 is controversial, I would say. You use your horse most of the time. Your horse is a big pile of RNG though. As you can see right there, the horse decides to randomly stop at certain areas. The horse can, when you call your horse, it randomly spawns somewhere around the minimap in that radius, the top right. And it can cause several other problems, which are all in a way bound to some sort of RNG. Most of the time it works out fine, but there can be instances where the horse really just hinders you in many ways. So after I defeat those monsters, I have to start a bit of an investigation here using my Witcher senses, which is kind of a searching ability. That's the central Witcher ability, which allows me to inspect items and collect hidden items. But for now, I basically just try to follow the quest. The Witcher, of course, is known for its vibrant open world and many side quests, also in-depth side quests. I'm skipping on basically all of those. I'm just trying to get through the main story as fast as possible, also trying to skip several parts of the main story wherever it is possible. Once again, you see that roach just stops on some spaces. It's consistent, but there's nothing much you just have to deal with it. So in a way, it's not truly RNG in many places, because you know that the horse is going to be scared of corner and stop. But there's other places where the horse can get stuck. It can't get through bushes. It just can't climb up a ledge. It's a bit of a mess, but most of the time it's just amusing. Run here to this vineyard, which ends up being Geralt's home eventually. A bit of story along the way. And I try to fight this vampire that's hiding in the basement. Vampires are a difficult enemy for several reasons. This one I try to evade the shockwave without success, unfortunately. I give her a moon dust bomb, which basically exposes her even when she can go invisible. and I try to hit her as much as possible. These fights with a Bruxa can go terribly wrong. Because there's sometimes cases where you just can't hit her. She does not allow you to hit her. It's difficult to determine what exactly to do against it. But in the end, this fight actually went very well.
Hey, that's pretty good.
And that was the first split. That was my gold sound. After all, this is one of the first times I'm using this specific macro. I have used others for practice though. So that's why I might get some golds, just because the dialogue will go quite a bit faster. But it will be more consistent and simply more enjoyable. So I went to Roach there after dealing with the vampire. Now I head to this little bit of a tournament and we go right to the next boss fight. Most of these fights have some way about them of cheesing, I guess. And this next one has a very big cheese ability, I guess. It's a Shelmar. And I just need him to roll in my direction, then dodge him in time, and he gets stunned long enough for me to kill him. Stuck on his belly, I just use my whirl ability to instantly deal damage. That's why I pick up all those red mutagens, just because I can deal so much damage in so little time, especially on the easiest difficulty. So now comes one of the longer sections of dialogue. Again, we see here I need to remember what all the dialogue choices are. Most of the time it's just one, but there's several cases where continuously pressing the one key can lead to huge time losses because dialogue choices affect the gameplay in several places. Force you to do more quests, things like that. So remembering all of them is very important, but for a large portion it's just pressing one repeatedly. Can we have a bit of a narrowed down quest segment where I have to take my horse up this hill? I could go to the right now, but I need it. In order to travel to a signpost, you need to have uncovered it, and I just uncovered that one to the left there. So that's why I went there with my horse, because I can teleport there later on, and then I trigger this cutscene. Witcher 3 is notorious for terrible fall damage, so if I had fallen down there without breaking myself off on the wall, I would have died. Just from 100 to 0 HP. There's not even any doubt about that. I have to kind of slide down the wall, which can be very inconsistent, in order to successfully land at the bottom and save a bunch of time. Now what I do here is I capture this unicorn. Even though I don't have to, it's not necessary for the quest, but I do it because it acts as a horse, and the horse runs a lot faster than Geralt can. I could just run to the next quest objective immediately, but instead I decide to spend the time capturing this horse replacement, I can't call my actual horse, in order to get across this feast a bit faster. This is kind of a little garden festival, I guess, in the loosest sense of terms. Need to pick up this item there in the water, then I head right back to my horse. And here, that thing I was talking about where I switch difficulties, that's going to happen right now. Well, in about 10 seconds. Again, the horse gets scared. Usually the horse shouldn't get scared of NPCs, but from time to time it still happens. You would never really know. Before I enter this, I will go ahead to Options, Gameplay, and turn it to the hardest difficulty. Reason will be explained shortly. There's another boss fight. There's a lot of boss fights here. Short boss fights. Because this guy, it doesn't matter if I kill him or he kills me. If he just does that, the cutscene ends the same way, and it's a lot faster than if I try to kill him. So I end this now with 0 HP or 1 HP. I split.
That's pretty good.
First thing I do is switch back to easy, because on Death March, you do not regenerate HP while meditating. I'm meditating right now. This gives me a bit of a HP boost, regenerates my HP completely, and so that's why I switch back to easy before I meditate. Meditating is very important in The Witcher. I kind of glitch up this wall if it works. Doesn't always. There we go. Allows me to save some time. because there is a more direct path around the right, but if I go there, I trigger a cutscene, which I can skip by going through this little side alley. Yeah, what I did there, meditating, it's not only important because it replenishes your HP, but it also replenishes your alchemy items. So my potions, and potions, of course, are very important. They increase my damage, my stamina regeneration, that yellow bar in the top left, which allows me to cast my magical abilities and to run. So in addition to those, there's also a regeneration potion and several others, which none of which I use. Those are the only 3 I use in this run, because using any others would be too much of a hassle to equip them, to switch them out. And quite frankly, the effects of most others aren't there to increase the speed which I can get through this run. At this point, you can really just look around a bit and appreciate the beauty of this expansions area. My horse stopped again, unfortunately. I'm running it at the lowest graphic settings just to get the most FPS, but I find it still looks beautiful for that. I go to the cemetery, there's a lot of monsters here that I could fight if I wanted to, but instead I just go down in order to meet my vampire friend. First, Geralt is falling through the sky, interestingly. Bugs can happen. If this game isn't always happy that I speedrun it. So I kill these 3 Kikimores, and I try to get up here without... In combat, Geralt can't jump. So he can't get onto ledges while he's fighting, which is kind of a problem. I go through this wall even though I don't have to pick up a sword. This is not going to be useful until like the end of the run, but I'll explain it when I get there as well. Now we meet this kind man here, who is a vampire as well. This expansion is all about vampires, but he's a friend. He's a very nice vampire. Again, I need to get through this dialogue as fast as possible. And then I call my horse. Or not, but it's there already. It's waiting for me. Once again, I follow the quest marker. More often than not in this run, you get to follow the quest marker, because there's not many other side quests which can distract you. In the any % run of this game, which is 3 hours long, by the way, where you run the main story, very often you go to a quest which you're not currently selected, because there's so many different quests going on at the same time. So you have to memorize kind of where you need to go in which direction. You have to memorize landmarks. It's not really the case here that much, sometimes. But for now, I can just kind of go into the direction of that yellow circle and follow these paths. Also something very important, Roach, when I let go of my directional keys, Roach follows the nearest road and regains stamina. The horse regains its stamina, which is very useful for continuously galloping. If I just gallop while pressing forward, eventually the stamina will run out. So that's kind of a little bit of a management issue. I have to go to this little bit of a haunted house here. I leave my horse standing there because the horse attracts all the monsters that are around here, so I don't have to worry about them later on. I head into this house. There's a bit of examination I have to do here and a lot of layering dialogue, because I just examine a bunch of things in a row. And Geralt has a lot to say about all those things. Might not be audible because I have the sound very low. Right there. This is a very important dialogue choice, pressing 2 here instead of 1. And all I had to do was get, I believe, a tear from that wight, that's kind of a cursed woman who denied help to a beggar. And that beggar turned out to be a very powerful being that punished her for this deed. Which is not really important to the speedrun, just saying. And see here, I went too close to where my horse was, so I'll need to try to run away from these mobs. There's a chance that I'll need to kill one of them because he's chasing me, but that's fine. I want to get to the signpost without being in combat, because you cannot fast travel while being in combat. So since this one person followed me, I need to kill him. And now I get the ability to fast travel. There we go. I fast travel back to that cemetery I was just at. I believe I forgot to split here. That's okay, I will just skip this one. Forgetting splits is basically my middle name. I do that a lot. Go back down to where my friendly vampire lives. And I talk to him. So what we do now is we go to this vampire prison. And there's another... It's not really a boss fight. It's more a wave fight. There's a lot of enemies coming at you. I have to properly deal with all of them. Get through here. I don't really need that. I will pick up this loot here because it gives me a sword, which deals a lot of damage. As you can see, Geralt has 2 swords. One is steel, one is silver. The silvers is for all the monsters. Steel is for all the humans. And I just picked up a very strong steel sword, which I will use later on. I don't need it yet. But later on it's going to be of great help because it does more damage and it can stun enemies. That's why I picked that up. I need to put baits here to get monsters. And once the monsters come, I kill them. Thereby kind of setting my friendly vampire into a bit of a bloodlust so he can help me.
3 done, 1 left.
The story is, I guess, somewhat twisted. Not in a bad way. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff going on. So I put him into that cage. I will use Quen and both my potions here. Quen is my protective sign, my protective ability. It gives me a little bit of a shield. And that is useful not really for the damage protection. I'm not scared of dying. I'm more scared of being staggered. Because when enemies attack me, just like that one, I get staggered. And that's a time waste because I can't attack while I'm staggered, obviously. At the top of the screen, I can see the bar of how many monsters I still have to kill. Nobody fully comprehends how this fight works. We've tried several times, different ways of ending it. It seems to be almost random. Eventually, he just decides, okay, I've had enough now, and then the boss fight ends. By the way, the reason I'm not scared at all, despite having this very low HP, is because I do have one ability that basically replenishes my HP if it goes to 0, as long as I have adrenaline points. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Those 3 red points below that yellow stamina bar, those are my adrenaline points. They increase when I deal damage. If I have at least 1 and I lose all my HP, I don't actually die. I just get full HP back, and that's very useful for, you know, just attacking enemies. You don't have to dodge that much. You can take damage. Basically, taking damage is a bit faster in that case, and it's safer because you have this undying skill. It's called undying. I travel to the city. I have to beat up these guys that are kind of angry at a little child that scammed them. So I have to help him because I need his help. There's a bit of a haggling system. I just pay him the highest amount, so he tells me what I want to know. Technically, I could try to haggle down the price. It's not a very complicated system, but there's actually no reason for me to do that because I don't need money for anything else in this game. In this run, I mean. Again, more examination here. I have to pick up certain items, 2 in fact, right here, in order to progress the quest, even though there's a lot. So eventually I just have to memorize the location of all the items that you specifically need to pick up and examine in order to progress. Once again, I will use the signpost to fast travel because it's a lot quicker than running, especially when I have to travel across big distances like I do right now. I go to the main palace, I talk to the Duchess, and that furthers the investigation of what is going on right now. case like this, though, I would never call my horse because it's just way too short. Remember, when you have to call your horse, it spawns somewhere. If you're unlucky, it spawns really far away. That wastes time. You have to get onto the horse. You have to get the horse to a gallop. It's only worth it if you're going over larger distances. If not, it's way better to just run. Speaking of horses, I'm supposed to escort these two, but they're very slow, so I just leave them. They get angry at me, but that's okay. Also, if I were to follow them, I would kind of have to do an extra little quest, cutscene, that I avoid by simply leaving them. And it ends up being the same way. XP is also a bit of a curious issue. Usually on the top left of the screen, above my health bar, you can see a little white bar that shows me how far I am in levels. The XP that you gain in this speedrun is nobody's really figured out. Just in different runs, different runners get different amounts of XP, despite doing exactly the same thing. Whether there's something we're overseeing, or whether the XP is actually also randomly generated in some areas, we don't know. Either way, the only real problem that comes from being underleveled is that some enemies, if they're too high a level above you, they will get inflated HP. Their HP is going to be really, really high. So, whereas I can two-shot most enemies that are on my level, I would have to hit them at least 10 times. There's going to be one case like that in a bit, where I have to kill a bunch of overleveled enemies. Not for now. Also, this is the one I'm not sure if Hearts of Stone has a segment like this, but almost every run has some kind of a NPC following mission. This is the one of Blood and Wine. I have to just wait for the Duchess here to walk around, and she is very slow. So the point of this little mission here is to find a wine barrel that does not have the wine that it's supposed to. I know, of course, exactly where those barrels are. I go there instantly. I need to start by knocking on all of them to see if they're hollow or full. I have to knock on all 5 of them. She only knocks on one of them. There's nothing complicated about this. It turns out that all of them are full, and that one of them actually has the wrong wine in it. I need to figure that out by picking up this tap down here. And this... what is it even? A barrel tap. No, the other thing was just a hammer to put in the barrel tap. And then I need to try to get up here. While she's having her dialogue, though, it's fine, because I have to wait for that to end anyway. So I have a bit of a time here to just stand around. I need to interact with 2 of these barrels because the second one's always going to be the faulty one. So I just wait for now for Anna Henrietta to enjoy the wine.
I'd recognize this taste anywhere. This one is
One of the couple areas in this run where you absolutely can't do anything, you just have to wait. Perhaps there's a way to skip this. We haven't found it, but for now, it's just waiting for her to enjoy that glass of wine despite her pouring it in the wrong place. Cool. Anyway. It turns out that one of her vineyard owners has betrayed the Duchess. I mean, there's no point in recounting the story, really. We get to the next big fight here. I wish I had my Northern Wind here right now, but I don't. Technically, one can equip that, save some time, but only if I really throw it instantly. It would not have been worth to equip my bomb later. Northern Wind is a bomb that freezes all the enemies around me. This one is blocking my attack, so I need to somehow get him to drop his guard. What happened there was I touched one of the explosive barrels, and that's dangerous because they one-shot me. So I had to take my distance there. That can happen. And one issue with fights in this game is that NPCs, allied NPCs like all of these, they really don't do anything except stand in the way. They don't do damage. They don't really knock anyone back. They just stand in the way and prevent you from actually doing damage. Especially in a speedrun that you have to find a way to really move around them. I didn't do that too well there. I believe I must have split here. I'll just do that now. So exit this house, and I again go to this. I could run to the next quest objective. It's slightly faster to fast travel though, because Geralt running is simply not that fast, and you cannot gallop with Roach through the city. The game does not allow you to gallop. You can only trot, and that's about the same speed as Geralt running. Also, we have a bounty on our head now. That's why random people in the street are attacking us, but I will just ignore that and keep running away. I will meet the Duchess now to go to a festival. The festival has a couple of activities that I have to complete. No, that's incorrect actually. I can skip all of those activities. I was thinking of Hearts of Stone. This festival I just need to complete as quickly as possible. This is also an unskippable cutscene. I can't do anything there. It's probably just a loading screen. I enter the little soiree. And I drop down. First, go to the left to talk to someone in here. And this was the instance of nudity I was talking about. But it's over in a split second. Less than that. Run over here to inspect a clue. It gives me a smell. The Witcher can also follow smells with his Witcher senses. I don't do that because I know where the smell leads. And I talk to this person.
Quickly, upstairs.
Tore down the door, made a platform. Clever. Must have climbed this ladder. Strong too.
So basically I am trying to prevent a murder, but it turns out that the murder has already happened. So I must go on investigation case again and figure out who it was. Who it could have been.
Must have tiny chain links next to it from a snapped necklace. Seems there was a struggle. Blood on the
When inspecting the world with Witcher senses, red objects always imply quest objects. Things that I need to look at. I don't actually need to look at all of those. There's just a couple of necessary items, all of which I have now inspected, so that triggers the next cutscene. This is again a lot of dialogue. If I had to button mash through this, it would take longer, and it would simply be very straining. It looks very flashy,
Hey,
but it works.
That's pretty good.
And I should have gone left here immediately. I used to run to the next place, but instead, again, I used the signpost to travel there, which is to the left, opposite of where the quest marker points me to go. We get to a big section of the game. The game itself tells me that I should save the game soon, just because big fights are coming up. The split is called the courtyard. That's because this fight takes place in a big courtyard. And much like some of the other fights in this run, it's a confusing fight. Nobody really knows how it works. There, that was the warning that I should save. I decided to just tell it to go away. And I'm supposed to go into the house, but I can also wait on the outside and just meditate all the way to 12 o'clock, which is when the quest starts. That triggers the cutscene automatically. It's also the place I was talking about where I fight over-leveled enemies, and before I start doing that, I will go ahead and equip my stronger steel sword, this one. Equip both potions and go attack the archer first, because archers will otherwise make my life terrible. As you can see, it's not terrible. These guys do take damage from me, but in comparison to everyone else, it's barely anything. And I need to be careful because they do a lot of damage to me if I let them attack me. You try and dodge all of their attacks. I got lucky there. It was one of my abilities gives me a 6% chance to instantly kill an enemy. As you can see, the guy with his pike just did half my HP in damage. but I was able to stun him with the ability of my new sword. And this person is unique in the fact that I can't break his guard, so I need to dodge him and attack him from behind once he attacks me, like this. There we go, and that gives me the ability to also instantly kill him. The first time I'm going to be doing the so-called Ren spam now. Ren spam's a bit of a cheesy way to use an attack ability to stun lock an enemy, just like this. But it's only really effective now. It wouldn't have been effective before that. I can't do it on the guys with the long pikes though, because they can stun me. Everyone else is permanently stunned if I do it to them. This is supposed to be a charge up ability where I basically charge up a large overhead strike, but you can also just spam it if you get the timing correctly. You use this a lot more in other runs than in this one, but it's good especially for people who have shields because it breaks through the shield. And overall it's just a dishonorable way of killing enemies quickly. I disregard all of these people, I just go to the next part. And this is the fight I was talking about that is confusing. Nobody really knows how it works. It's a lot of enemies. I have two allies which are completely broken. They're both vampires. They instantly kill everyone. I also do, in a way, but not as fast as they do. And eventually this fight just ends. Like, even if you've not killed everyone, eventually this fight ends. There's also the opposite thing can happen, that you've killed everyone, and it doesn't end. So, what exactly is the trigger of the cutscene that ends this is a mystery. We've thought that it's all the enemies that have unique names, that they have to die, like this one called Catfish, whereas everyone else is just called Bandit, or something of that sort. But as you see, there's one enemy left, and there's a good chance that the fight will not end now. Yes, that's exactly what has happened. So, essentially I can't do anything now except for wait. This is unlucky, but that can happen. Whether it was my mistake or... There we go. It just had to stand around despite not a single enemy being alive for between, 10 and up to a minute. It's been... I've seen cases where you actually have to stand around there for a good minute and wait for the cutscene to trigger. One day I'm sure we'll figure it out. But yes. Now the whole city goes into a bit of a dangerous state. But I start out by having to kill another vampire. Using my moon dust again to expose her every time. But the hitboxes of these Roxa are kind of terrible. As you can see, my blade is passing right through her. She dodges back, but it doesn't hit her. It's weird. You can't... The same thing goes with rending, with the Ren spam I was talking about earlier. In some cases she's vulnerable, in others she just simply isn't, and there's not much I can do. I can't block her. I have to wait for her to actually be vulnerable. Like when she does her little scream, that makes her vulnerable, but only for one attack. And then I simply have to be lucky like that to get one big crit on her. Maybe I could also talk a bit about crit chance. It's like any other crits. It's just... yeah, I increase my crit chance by my abilities, and I increase crit damage. And they're very useful, of course, but also RNG. At this point, the game can go one of two ways. There's two different quests I could follow. I choose to follow the more evil one, I guess, because it's faster. If I were to choose the nicer one, I would go into a bit of a fairy tale world with unicorns and pigs and all the normal children's fairy tales that we all know about. The Three Little Pigs, of course, and Rapunzel, so, several other fairy tales as well. It's really cool. It's a really cool quest. That's part of the reason why this is such an amazing DLC, but I choose to go the darker route, I guess. And I talk to a very powerful vampire that helps me. To do that, I need to go back to that place where the feast was, because the host of the feast turns out also to be a vampire. Who would have thought? And you might remember I picked up a silver sword at the very beginning of this run. It's about to come into use soon. But for now, I'm at this orphanage, and that is the vampire I was talking about, the hostess. She has an orphanage, which might seem weird that a vampire has an orphanage, and it is also kind of weird because in exchange for her bringing up the children, they give her a bit of their blood, not enough to be lethal, but she drinks their blood, and Geralt is kind of disgusted by that, understandably. And he vows to come back one day and kill her. And that's what one of the cinematic Witcher trailers is. Just a little side note there. For now, I should follow the trail of one of the vampires here. But I already know where their trail leads. Disclaimer, not disclaimer, just a warning really at this point. I'm about to go under that bridge and there's a very loud sound. Even though I've turned down the audio a lot, it's going to be loud. No, for me more probably than for the recording though, because I did turn down the recording audio. This fight is not... it depends on how often. This also can jump into the air a lot. Like that. You just need to... Even though you're not really out of his range, dodging it prevents him from doing any damage to you. So it's kind of just learning his attack rhythms, like most battles in this game. Also, I had to collect up the loot that he gave me because I kind of had to collect his trophy to prove that I actually killed him. And I head right back to where I came from, to the orphanage. And with my trusty horse, carrying the head of that alpha vampire, I guess. That's what it's called. It's kind of the trophy system in The Witcher. When you kill a large animal, you can collect its trophy, and you can carry it on your horse for some sort of bonus in stats. And now I catch her in the act. I catch her drinking the blood of the little child. That's when Geralt vows to come back one day. So for now, I'm gonna... Basically, this is the point where there's no going back. I choose to go the dark path now. You won't change my mind. Exactly what I said.
Hey,
that's a split right there.
good.
I lost a lot of time in that courtyard fight. Like I said, that can go a lot faster, where I just stood around for a while without any enemies left until the cutscene arrived. That's where you can lose a lot of time. As for now, I'm just gonna cross this lake. Can take a look at the city that's being crowded by vampires. A lot of fire as well. I need to cross the lake and get to the lair of that very powerful vampire. Now, the game does something questionable with that vampire. Many players have complained about this. It's not really related to speedrunning, but that vampire is apparently so strong that Geralt has zero chance, and if he tries to fight it, he dies. Like, you cannot beat that enemy, no matter how long you'd fight him. So I have to play around that. The quest forces you to play around that, and you have to enter a cave that's really well made. Cave that kind of shifts gravity up and down. I'm gonna see it in a second. Here, I kind of try to get up this hill because I don't want to take the stairs to the left. And I open this secret entrance. And I'm about to get to that point that explains the reason why I picked up the silver sword earlier on and haven't equipped it yet. There's a vampire here that vampire fight that I try to skip by just jumping. If I wait a bit longer, I go into combat and I can't get out of that place. And I have to kill it. So it's also a bit of a timing thing. As you see here, the vampire decides to attack me. All that skipped, of course. But I land here in this little segment of the cave. Very wounded. And at this point, I use... My two swords are lying over there. I could pick them up, or I could just use the one which I have in my inventory, which is the stronger one that I picked up earlier. That's why I pick it up, so I can just equip it now instantly. I pick up my healing potion. I quickly put the silver sword back on. Do that, and there we go. Next cutscene's about to trigger. I have my sword. I don't have to pick up any more gear. Waste time with that. And I don't need a steel sword anymore. I only fight monsters from now on, so that's why I don't bother with picking up my steel sword again. That's kind of the little bit of a skip you do. Otherwise, I'd have to wait for him to stand up, walk back there, collect all my loot, hope to find both my swords.
Get out of here. Unless I can.
Instead, I can just begin running immediately. This does look strange, of course, because we're used to seeing Geralt with 2 swords, but he's decided to cut it down by half. Again, a little bit of a skip here. If I went left there would be a cutscene and I'd have to fight some vampires. Instead, I just try to sort of abuse hitboxes on this wall and get all the way up here. This is not really supposed to work, but somehow we found that. And now, as you can see, the path kind of curves upward. Oops, I started mashing there out of instinct. And now I'm on the ceiling. It's not easily visible without looking around a bit, but I promise I'm on the ceiling. That thing falls down, and I have to fight this vampire. I thought it would die from that. I read this mysterious note that... No, that's a sword. I guess that works though. If the game would allow me to read it. There we go. Only once I read it I can pick up this little rock in the corner. And that rock will allow me to appeal to that vampire that I met earlier. It's kind of a relic, I guess, a special stone. So I use this upside down waterfall to go back down to the floor. I'm no longer on the ceiling. I mean, obviously these are 2 separate areas. They didn't actually reverse gravity, they just turned around the map. But still, it's a cool little gimmick, I guess. Especially for an open world game. If this were a more linear game, I think they could have managed to do some interesting stuff with the gravity, but this works as well. I can get up there, I don't have to go around. Just a tiny little time save there. And here, this dialogue choice is kind of important. If I take the wrong one, I just die. The guy kills me. So I'm glad I didn't do that. There's a lot of dialogue here. I will split. That is not actually true. Equip my Thunderbolt, which will allow me to do more damage. And this is the final boss of the game. I can 2-shot him, 3-shot him. My bad. It might have still been a gold, but I missplit, I believe, on my PB, so that's why there's a huge time save there suddenly. It won't be that big. This boss fight is an absolute terror on Death March, but it's really easy on the easiest difficulty. This swarm of bats that he sends after you, it does so much damage on Death March. It's totally fine here though. Added to the fact that I can just hit him 3 times and go to the next stage, just because that's how much damage I do with this build. Also, one of the parts where it gets very gory, I guess, you kind of enter the vampire's heart in some way. You'll see in a second. Higher vampires can apparently only be killed by other higher vampires, so the Witcher can't really kill him, but somehow he still enters this strange dimension. Either way, there's 3 little hitboxes here that I have to kill in order to finish the boss fight, and then there's that red thing that keeps chasing after me. And so what I do is I run to these little blobs here, and I use my whirl ability, because it basically protects me from the other one, from the one that's behind me. Doesn't allow him to hit me. I don't bother with him if I don't have to. Until he's dead. He will die now, and now I stop using my whirl because it's less DPS. And because it wastes stamina. And he respawned there. I didn't react in time. I should have rolled away in order to prevent him from knocking me back. But now that he's back, I will use my whirl again. Just to kill this last artery, I guess. And that's it. That's the end of the boss fight. Not entirely. Still one more part. He falls out. I know where, so I run to him and I just smack him twice. And that's the end. There's another very important dialogue choice. I need to press 3 instead of 1, otherwise I start a whole nother quest. That has lost me time very many times already. because you have to either reload or go for the quest, both of which are not very favorable options. So instead, I decline the quest. I go through this little cutscene from earlier, and I use the fast travel to get to the crowning ceremony for having defeated the vampire. Geralt looking absolutely amazing, of course, in his new tunic here.
Your reputation precedes you, Captain.
I talk to the guard, and then I go to the ceremony. I don't really have to spoil what happens here. I'll just skip it. More dialogue, and there's a bit more of gameplay left. In fact, there's actually one more fight with some more vampires, because there can never be enough vampires. But again, as opposed to running to where I have to go now, even though it's very short, it is a bit faster to just take this signpost right next to it. Then I have to climb over a wall, probably not in an intended way. Like that, exactly. Yes, the reason I'm like losing time again is because that 3-minute save split was not an actual 3-minute save. This is the final little part. What I do is I have to equip a mask and some gloves that allow me to pick a poisonous root, because my friend the vampire wants to make some alcohol with it. Some mandrake alcohol. This is the first one. This is the second one. And then I go to meet with him and I realize, he's not there. Where must he have gone? So I run down here. I know that he's being attacked by other vampires. I equip my moon dust and I use it. Here we go. I kind of expose them all. He one-shots them. I would have, but she knocked me back. Here we go. I one-shot her too, and that's almost the end. Very close to it. The game ends, the run ends as soon as the final cutscene falls, which is this. Well, this is the ending screen, I guess. There was still some dialogue, that's why it didn't end before, but as soon as the dialogue is finished, it's over. So a decent run, I'd say. Of course, the fact that I have this macro definitely saved a lot of time. I'd say that amounts to, I don't know, maybe 30 to 50 seconds of that time save of 1.5 minutes, almost 1.5 minutes. There's just so much dialogue in this game that having such a consistently fast skip for it is a huge time save. On a run that's even longer, like the any percent 3 hours and 15 minutes run, it would save even more time. But for now, officially, button mashing is still the proper way to do it. I'll just hope that someday it'll change, but for the sake of showing this run to other people, I think it's be more appealing with a macro. I mean, you don't have to listen to keys being mashed, and you see that it can be enjoyable, because many people that have considered running this decided not to because of the mashing, and I totally understand that. And that's just unfortunate, especially if it can be solved, which is what we're trying to do. Anyway, enough about mashing. Geralt is done now. I mean, there is still a little bit of the quest left, but that's just a little epilogue, I guess. A little sneak. It's a Easter egg? No, it's not an Easter egg. Geralt finds something at his home, but it's not important. It's not part of the story, so we don't incorporate it in the run. I'll quit back to the main menu, and I will say thank you for watching. There's not much more I have to say about this. I believe I explained most things along the way, more or less. And the 2 disclaimers that were very important, I said those in the beginning. Other than that, I just really do hope that I can portray this at the European Speedrunner Assembly. It would mean a lot to me. It is a very small community, and with a couple of people hoping to pick up the run soon. But it's quite an underrated run, I'd say. Many people have tried it. It used to be very different many years when it came out, because there used to be a huge glitch that changed everything. I decided not to submit that old run though, because it's simply a relic more than a current run. the way that this game works now is completely different, and I kind of prefer it this way. I don't like the speed glitch, even though I've tried it many times before. I'm not going to explain it or anything because it's not that important. I'm just saying I'd like to share this run with the world because I think it's, of course, it's one of the most popular RPG games, and taking a bit of a different spin on it might be very interesting. Thank you.